Hey Salt, it's me Liam, the weatherman.
Get out of here. You don't start first. Hey everyone, welcome back to Virtual Salt. If you haven't heard about it, I think it would be cool if you checked out Kids Church. You can see it on the Coast DC website, which I'll put the link right here for you. So if you go there, you can check out Kids Church and it'll come out this Sunday at 10 o'clock. Now, who remembers what we did last time? So last time, we looked at a man named Naaman. Now, I've got a couple pictures that I'll show you. This is from Natalie and David. So first one, this is from Natalie. Good job, Natalie. And then the next one we have from David. Thanks, David. All right, now, so that's all the pictures that we have for this week. Now I'm going to pass it over to the weather. Over to you, Liam.
Hey Salt, it's me Liam, your favourite weatherman. As you can see, the sun's out, it's got nice blue skies, and there's absolutely no chance of rain. Over to you, Tamika. No chance of rain.
Hey everyone! Welcome back to Story Time. I've got my storybook Bible here, and we're going to be reading a story called God's Messenger. Let's get into it.
This story is about Jonah and the big fish from Jonah's chapter 1 to 4 in the Bible. God had a job for Jonah, but Jonah didn't want it. Go to Nineveh, God said, and tell your worst enemies that I love them. No, said Jonah. Those are bad people doing bad things. Exactly, said God. They have run far away from me, but I can't stop loving them. I will give them a new start. I will forgive them. No, said Jonah. They don't deserve it. I'll run away, Jonah said to himself. Far away, so far away that God won't be able to find me. Then I won't have to do what God says. It's a plan, he said. Because as far as he knew, it was a good plan. But of course it wasn't a very good plan at all. It was a silly plan because you can run away from God, but he'll always come and find you. Jonah went ahead with his not very good plan. One ticket to not Nineveh, please, he said, and boarded a boat sailing in the very opposite direction of Nineveh. Well, it wasn't long before a fierce wind blew, and the boat started to lurch and pitch and roll, and everyone started turning green. Jonah sat bolt upright in his bed. You see, the first thing that went wrong with Jonah's not very good plan was that God sent a big storm after him. The sailors couldn't sail their ship properly. We're sinking, they screamed, and started throwing everything overboard, suitcases, food, whatever they could find. But by now, Jonah knew that the storm was his fault. Throw me in instead, he shouted to the sailors, and the storm will stop. The sailors weren't sure. It's the only way you can be saved, Jonah cried. And so, 1, 2, 3, splash! No sooner had Jonah hit the water, the waves grew calm, the wind died down, and the storm stopped. Just when Jonah thought it was all over, when he was sure he was going to drown, God sent a big fish to rescue him. The fish swallowed Jonah whole with one big gulp. Jonah must have thought he'd died. It was so dark in there, like in a tomb. But then he smelled the rotting food and felt the slimy seaweed and knew he wasn't dead. He was in the belly of a fish. Sitting there in the darkness for 3 whole days, Jonah had plenty of time to think. Pretty soon he realized his plan was, well, a very silly plan indeed. He was sorry for running away. He prayed to God from inside the great fish and asked God to forgive him. After 3 days, the fish spat Jonah safely out onto a sandy beach. Just then, Jonah heard someone calling his name. "Go to Nineveh," God said. And this time, Jonah said, "Yes!" He went straight to Nineveh and told everyone God's wonderful message. Even though you've run far away from God, he can't stop loving you, Jonah told them. Run to him so he can forgive you. The people of Nineveh listened to Jonah and they started loving God. They learned to do what God said and to stop running away from him, just like Jonah. Many years later, God was going to send another messenger with the same wonderful message. Like Jonah, he would spend 3 days in utter darkness, but this messenger would be God's own son. He would be called the Word, because he himself would be God's message translated into our own language. Everything God wanted to say to the whole world in a person.
Hey guys, welcome back to Salty News. I'm back again to bring you the latest, and this week, yet again, we have a fantabulous interview lined up for you. I'll give you 3 clues. He's from the Old Testament, he hates swimming, and his name rhymes with loner. That's right, guys, today we have Jonah.
Thanks for having me today, guys. I can't wait to share.
So Jonah, tell me, do you make a habit of running away from things? Especially things that God wants you to do? And when did you realize the mistake you had made? Because it seems to me that God's message was pretty clear. I don't know how someone could try to run from God.
Well, I don't run away from things all the time, but those guys at Nineveh were the worst of the worst, and so wrongly, I thought I had the right to not help them. I pretty soon realized that I messed up, and when that storm came, though, and don't get me started on that fish, God still dealt mercifully with me, though. I realized I was wrong, and he rescued me from the sea and the fish and put me on dry land, which at the time looked impossible, but God is powerful.
That's great and all, Jonah, but why did you run from God? I don't know if I can accept your answer here, because who in their right mind runs from God? Like you said, God is powerful. I don't know, Jonah. Something seems a bit fishy to me. Do you even know who God is?
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure lots of people run from God all the time. Have you ever ignored something God wants you to do? Like, for instance, I'm sure there were times you haven't forgiven someone who was mean to you or lied about something because it was easier for you.
Okay, we get it. We all don't listen to God sometimes, even if we know him. I certainly have been getting to know him these last few weeks through these special salty interviews. Well, you got to Nineveh in the end though, didn't you, Jonah?
Yeah, I got there in the end after spending 3 days and 3 nights in the fish, but that was nothing compared to Jesus, who took our punishment for not doing what God wants. He spent 3 days and nights dead in the tomb, and then he rose again. How awesome.
That is pretty awesome. Despite all our running, God still loves us and is in control. Thanks, Jonah, for an interesting and challenging episode. And thanks, Salty viewers, for tuning in. We'll catch you next week with some more Salty news.
Thanks for joining us this week. I want to see your best pictures of Jonah and the big fish. You can send them in to this email address and we can have them on next week on Virtual Salt. Anyway, that's it. See you guys.